Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining from around the world. I would start with a little housekeeping. So I would like to remind all of you that interpretation is available in three different languages: English, Chinese, and French. So please do click the interpretation icon, which is the little globe symbol at the bottom of the screen, at the bottom of the Zoom screen to select your preferred language. I am Dr. Olivier Mendu from Cameroon, and it is my immense privilege to extend a warm welcome to you at this 2026 United Nations High-Level Political Forum on Sustainable Development event. And the theme of this forum today is transformative, equitable, innovative, and coordinated action for the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and its Sustainable Development Goals, paving the way for a sustainable future for all. And today, we stand united as a global community comprising United Nations leaders, policymakers, also experts and passionate youth advocates. And each of them, or each of us, will play a crucial role in shaping a more inclusive and sustainable future for all. So, and we have a very esteemed lineup of speakers representing a diverse range of regions and experience, hailing from China, Australia, but also to the United Kingdom, the Egypt, China, Hong Kong, and the United States and Canada. So to begin with, let's watch a brief video introduction of the Beijing Change Year Education Foundation. Since 2019, they have held special consultative status with the United Nations Economic and Social Council, and their work has empowered millions of young people and families across Asia and beyond. So please, let's watch the promotional video.
A child is a family. These children are going to grow up into future mothers and fathers. As for this matter, if we do it, we may not see the results immediately. If we don't do it, however, we will see the consequences soon. To protect our own children, we must protect all children. Miss Zhang Yinjin, an ordinary mother, has stuck to these words for 18 years. In 2006, she resolutely resigned from public office and founded the AIDS Prevention and Education Project for Chinese youth. In 2014, she established the Beijing Change Year Education Foundation. After years of efforts, the Beijing Change Year Education Foundation has been closely integrated with government sectors of education, healthcare, civil affairs, youth league committees, women's federations, and public security. By building change year huts in schools and communities, more than 1,000 schools in 29 provinces and cities nationwide have promoted the AIDS Prevention and Education Project for Chinese youth. And Love Education for young people has been comprehensively carried out. More than 22,000 teachers have been trained. More than 35,000 children and young people in distress have been subsidized. And more than 30 million students, teachers, and parents have been directly benefited. Nowadays, Change Your Huts have become the integrated platforms for carrying out multiple social tasks, such as drug control and AIDS prevention, mental health, sexual health, charity, and traditional culture. Love is the soul of education. Without love, there is no education. As a mother and a woman, she has been braving the wind and rain and blazing her way forward through all the difficulties for nearly 20 years because of her love. Her journey has been an arduous but great one. In the exploration and practice of the system of love education mode for the youth, Change Year has been praised by all sectors of society and instructed by national leaders. Michelle Sidby, Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations and Executive Director of the UNAIDS, praised Changier for it has done the most difficult job, whose experiences and practices deserve to be promoted worldwide. In 2019, Changier won and received the Special Consultative status of the United Nations Economic and Social Council. In 2022, Changier won a 5A level NGO rating. The Love Education Campus Tour project carried out by Changier won the China Charity Award. Everything is interconnected with each other. Distant places and countless people are related to you and me. Protecting children means protecting the future of society.
大家好，我是亲爱工程形象大使康辉。
大家好，我是亲爱工程妨碍大使朱旭。
我是亲爱工程爱心大使万茜。
我是郑恺。
大家好，我是张静初。
我是梅婷。
我是李丹雅。
大家好，我是王琦。
亲爱小屋，爱的教育。
万间小屋，万万福田。
It is better for everyone to donate 1 yuan than for one person to donate 100 million yuan. A little spark kindles a great fire. We believe that all small efforts will eventually converge into a torrent of great goodness. Guard every child's smile. Guard the innocence of every child. Guard all our children.
All right. Thank you very much for our team. So throughout today's session, we'll have several stories, research, and innovative strategies that will be shared. And this forum, and you have to know that this forum is not just a conversation, right? It is a catalyst for bold actions, but also meaningful change. So let's now begin our speaker's presentation, just getting to specific. First of all, it's my honor to introduce to you our first distinguished speaker, Ms. Susan Kendall, a renowned United Nations gender expert with over a decade of global experience. Based in Egypt, Cairo, she has spearheaded impactful programs in Botswana, in Kenya, the United States, and the United Kingdom. Her expertise spans guiding UNICEF Botswana National Gender Strategy and advancing girls' education through the United Kingdom Foreign and Commonwealth and Development Office. So Ms. Susan's bold and inclusive vision is a testament to her extensive work across continents. And she holds a master's degree from the University College London Institute of Education. So please join me in welcoming Ms. Susan Kendall.
Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you to the Changier Education Foundation for inviting me to speak today. It is a privilege to join you, and I'm delighted to be speaking to so many of you. I'd like to begin with a story from the very beginning of my own career. As a young gender specialist working in Gaborone in Botswana in Southern Africa, I met a group of teenage mothers whose lives had changed overnight. Many had left school and felt isolated, and most faced stigma from their own communities. They were often seen only for the mistakes they had made, rather than the potential they still had. What struck me most was that the support existed, but it existed in silos. Doctors could provide healthcare, counsellors could offer emotional support, schools wanted girls to return to education. Different organisations were all trying to help, but no one was connecting the pieces together. So, I founded a support network for teenage mothers. With the support of the British High Commission, we brought together healthcare professionals, counsellors, and education specialists. But perhaps the most important part of the network was the young women themselves. For many of them, it was the first time they had sat in a room with others who truly understood what they were going through. They encouraged one another to return to school. They shared experience without fear of judgment. They learned about their health, their rights, and their futures. Together, they challenged the stigma surrounding teenage motherhood and built the confidence to move forward. Looking back, I don't think the most innovative part of that project was the programme itself, The innovation was recognizing that lasting change happens when people are connected. Innovation isn't always about technology. Sometimes innovation is simply creating space where people feel seen, heard, and supported. That lesson has stayed with me throughout my career. Over the following years, I've had the privilege of working with UNICEF across different countries, partnering with governments, communities, and colleagues to advance gender equality and improve opportunities for women and children. Everywhere I worked, whether it was in education, WASH, or gender equality, I found the same to be true. The strongest solutions were never imposed from the outside. They were built with communities, not for them. One example comes from a school-based menstrual health and hygiene program in Bolivia. Traditionally, menstruation has been seen as something only girls and women should talk about. But instead of focusing only on girls, the program deliberately involved boys, male teachers, and the wider community. Together, they challenged the myths, reduced stigma, and created safe spaces for open conversations. The results went far beyond improving knowledge about menstrual health. Girls felt more confident speaking about their periods and their health. Boys developed greater empathy and understanding. Students began talking openly with their families about puberty and hygiene. And responsibility for menstrual health shifted from being seen as a girl issue to something the whole community supported. Innovation also means using new tools to reach people in new ways. In Tanzania, UNICEF and its partners worked alongside more than 300 girls to localize the Oki Period Tracker app, ensuring it reflected their language, their culture, and their lived experiences. The app provides trusted menstrual health information and cycle tracking through a fun, girl-friendly design, helping to dispel myths, build confidence, and give girls greater control over their own health. What I particularly love about this example is that the girls weren't simply the users of the app, they helped design it. Once again, the solution was created with the community and not for the community. These examples remind us that transformative change doesn't come from one approach alone. Whether through community dialogue, digital innovation, or partnership, lasting progress happens when people are empowered to shape the solutions that affect their own lives. Communities are incredibly resilient. People often know what they need. Sometimes what they lack is the opportunity, the resources, or someone who believes in their ability to create change. Throughout my career, I've been interested in the mentorship of women at different stages of their professional journeys. Whether supporting young professionals just starting out or observing senior leaders navigating new challenges, I've seen that confidence grows when people are trusted, encouraged, and given the space to lead in their own way. More recently, my own career has evolved. Alongside my work in international development, I've trained as a women's health and well-being coach. And at a first glance, that might seem like a very different path, but I've realised it is built on exactly the same foundations. Whether I'm working with governments or to strengthen policies or supporting one woman to improve her health and confidence, the principles remain the same. Real change starts with listening. It grows through trust, and it lasts when people feel empowered to shape their own futures. Throughout my career, I've learned that leadership isn't defined by a job title or seniority. It's about listening, building partnerships, and asking who is missing from the conversation. That simple question, who is not yet at the table, has guided my career from Botswana to my work with UNICEF, and it continues to guide me today. The Sustainable Development Goals remind us that the world's greatest challenges cannot be solved by one country, one organisation, or one profession. They require partnership and they require empathy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Susan, for presenting such a compelling vision for sustainable development. We thank you for that. Without further ado, I would like to call on the second or the next speaker in the name of Casey Jiang, a high school student at the experimental high school attached to Beijing Normal University. She is interested in anthropology, cultural studies, and sustainable development. Her experiences include field research in Liangshan, youth-led cultural education project, and digital storytelling. Outside academics, she also enjoys musical theater, photography, and exploring fashion. So please welcome Casey, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Mandu. Honorable guests, distinguished representatives, and fellow youth delegates. Today, I begin not with a statistic, but with a memory. When I was 15, I began exploring the Yi culture of Southwest China. The Yi are one of China's 56 officially recognized ethnic groups, whose living traditions have been shaped across generations by family, landscape, shared memory, skilled labor, spirituality, and community life. Its vivid colors, intricate patterns, and embroidery craftsmanship drew me in. At first, I saw only beauty. But during my field research in Liangshan, my understanding changed. I followed children from Zhaojia village and Siga primary school to their mountain homes. The road was steep and slippery. While I struggled through mud, children stepped lightly from stone to stone. Seeing me fall behind, one girl turned back, reached out and said, "Hold on to me." That moment stayed with me. After school, the children cooked, cared for siblings, worked in the fields, then did homework. Showing me their embroidered clothing, they said, "My mother made this." I understood that embroidery was more than a beautiful object or souvenir. It carried family memory, labor, love, identity, and their lives. Later, I learned about lacquer, the family hearth, Degu mediation, and Bimo culture, the spiritual core of each tradition. Through chanting and ritual healing, Bimo connect people with ancestors, spirits, and nature. This experience taught me that culture is not only clothing, festivals, food, or language. Culture is a way of understanding the world. Cultures worldwide face common challenges. Globalization brings connection but homogenization. Tourism brings income but can turn culture into performance. Digital technology brings visibility but also misunderstanding and appropriation. Economic development brings opportunity but may cause vulnerable communities to lose the power to define their culture. From indigenous languages in the Americas to Pacific ecological knowledge, African oral histories, and Asian crafts, living heritage teaches how people coexist with nature, organize communities, resolve conflict, care for children, and imagine beauty. Today, sustainable development needs not only technology and funding, but also cultural wisdom. However, the efforts to bring culture into modern life can make it shallow. Sacred rituals become tourist performances. Workshops offer a craft, but not its story. Brands borrow traditional patterns without understanding their origins or ensuring recognition and benefits for source communities. When culture is consumed without context, communities may lose connection, belonging, and the power to define their cultural future. According to UN data, there are about 476 million indigenous peoples across more than 90 countries, representing more than 5,000 distinct groups. E-culture is only one of humanity's many ways of living. So I ask, how many ways of understanding the world does humanity still have, and how quickly are we losing them? When a culture disappears, we lose more than a costume, language, or ritual. We lose an entire knowledge system, another way of solving problems, living with nature, building community, and imagining the future. That is why cultural preservation must be placed at the center of sustainable development. Culture connects to education, poverty reduction, gender equality, climate resilience, peace building, digital inclusion, and economic opportunity. When culture is alive, it preserves the past, creates value in the present, and offers direction for the future. However, the way we measure cultural preservation is incomplete. SDG Target 11.4 calls for stronger protection of cultural and natural heritage, but Indicator 11.4.1 mainly measures expenditure on heritage preservation per capita. Funding matters, but money cannot tell us whether young people still speak a language, rituals remain meaningful, or communities retain the power to renew their culture. That is why I propose a new approach, a living heritage index. This index could measure cultural vitality through 6 indicators: active language use, youth participation, cultural transmission and education, creative adaptation, sustainable cultural industries, and community agency. It would not reduce culture to numbers, but remind policymakers to measure whether culture is practiced, shared, transformed, and inherited, not only financial input. For the 2026 United Nations High-Level Political Forum, this is especially important. Sustainable development that ignores culture cannot be truly sustainable. As young people, we can record stories with respect, support community-led cultural education, use digital tools carefully, promote fair cultural industries, and refuse to turn culture into a performance for outsiders. Most importantly, we must ask, does this preservation truly strengthen the people who carry the culture? Let us not preserve culture only in museums. Let us help culture live in communities, grow with new generations, and contribute wisdom to humanity's shared future. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Casey, for reminding us that living heritage is not only a record of the past, but a vital source of identity, also a resilience and a sustainable development for the future, for future generations. So thank you very much for your remarks. Next, I would like to, and I'm very honored to introduce Ms. Yinjun Zhang. She's the founder and chair of the Beijing Change Year Education Foundation. For over 20 years, she has advanced youth health, education, and public welfare, reaching more than 40 million people through programs across China and around the world. The foundation holds the United Nations ECOSOC Special Consultative Status and has received the China Charity Award. So please let us welcome Ms. Yinjun Zhang.
Distinguished guests, colleagues, and young friends, it is an honor to join this United Nations High-Level Political Forum side event and introduce the Qinghai Silk Road Soft Connectivity, China-Africa Youth and Mombasa-Nairobi Railway Humanitarian Action. The year 2026 marks the 70th anniversary of diplomatic relations between China and African countries and the China-Africa Year of People-to-People Exchanges. At this important moment, we recognize that sustainable development requires not only hard connectivity through roads, railways, energy systems, and digital networks, but also soft connectivity through education, health, youth exchange, women's empowerment, and mutual learning. Infrastructure can shorten the distance between cities. People-to-people exchange can shorten the distance between hearts. This August, the Qinghai Education Foundation, together with the African Institute for Capacity Development and other partners, will launch activities along Kenya's Mombasa-Nairobi Railway, traveling from Nairobi through Amboseli to Mombasa. The railway is not only a transportation corridor, it can also become a human connection linking young people, families, and communities. We hope to connect the economic opportunities it creates with the practical needs of local residents, especially women, children, and youth. Our initiative has 3 priorities. First, we will strengthen education and health. We plan to offer experiential life and health education courses for local young people, teachers, and volunteers. These activities will draw on our experience in adolescent health, mental health, family education, and education centered on love. Our goal is not to transplant a ready-made model. We will respect local knowledge and work with teachers, families, and young people to co-create approaches suited to their communities. Second, we will promote education for mothers and women's economic empowerment. With the support of the African Institute for Capacity Development, we plan to establish the AASA Dichingai Center for Motherhood and Family Education. This center will provide a long-term platform for China-Africa cooperation in maternal education, family development, and community support. We will also launch a pilot African Mothers Community Shop Empowerment Project in Mombasa. The project will support to community shops operated by local women's organizations, provide an initial supply of goods, and offer operational guidance and training. This is not a one-time donation. It is an effort to move from providing materials to creating opportunities, and from short-term assistance to sustainable livelihoods. Third, we will support young people as active agents of sustainable development. Young people from China and Kenya will participate in dialogue and joint activities, including a shared journey declaration. We will also launch the Chinai Silk Road Youth Partners mechanism to encourage continued engagement in health education, community service, and intercultural exchange. Young people should not be viewed only as beneficiaries. They should also be recognized as those who identify problems, propose solutions, and drive action. This initiative connects several sustainable development goals. Infrastructure and innovation strengthen regional connectivity. Health and education expand human capabilities. Women's empowerment strengthens families and communities. Partnerships among governments, businesses, universities, international institutions, and civil society advance Sustainable Development Goal 17. True sustainable development is not only about building a railway. It is also about ensuring that women gain opportunities, children receive education, and young people develop the capacity to shape the future. When we measure development, let us look not only at kilometers of railway, but also at whether the distance between people has become smaller. Let hard connectivity strengthen the foundations of development, and let soft connectivity deepen cooperation. Thank you.
We've gotten more of what you shared. Thank you very much, Ms. Zhang, for such a visionary leadership and unwavering dedication. Thank you for your work over the years. So I would like to also continue by introducing our next speaker in the name of Ujjwal Kumar. He is the founder and CEO of Quantum Alliance, a Cambridge, Massachusetts nonprofit working on the industrial base beneath AI and quantum, critical minerals, energy infrastructure, and supply chains. He leads its Q Fellows. He leads its fellow summer fellowship at the Harvard Innovation Labs, a Harvard Kennedy School Mason Fellow. He has worked extensively at the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization. So please, Mr. Ujjwal Kumar, we look forward to hearing from your insight.
Thank you, Chair. Excellencies, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to contribute to this event of 2026 High-Level Political Forum. My name is Ujjwal Kumar. I am the founder and chief executive officer of Quantum Alliance, a non-profit based in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I want to speak about Goal 11, which is sustainable cities. But I want to approach it from an unusual direction. When we say that a city is becoming digital, we usually imagine something light, something invisible, a cloud. It is not a cloud. It is a building. The building sits on the land. It draws electricity from a grid. It uses water to stay cool. And it is made from metal that was dug out of the ground somewhere else. So let me offer three simple facts. The first fact is power. Data centers now consume a small but rapidly growing share of world's electricity. In many cities, one large facility can use as much power as tens of thousands of homes, which is goal 7, affordable and clean energy. The second fact is water. Many of these facilities are cooled with water. Some are being built in regions that are already short of it, which is goal 6. The third fact is minerals. Copper for cabling, aluminum for the structures, rare earth elements for the magnets, lithium for the backup power. A modern data center is one of the most metal-intensive buildings we construct, which is again goal 9, industry, innovation, and infrastructure. Now, why does this matter for goal 11? Because these decisions are made at the level of the city. A mayor decides where the facility is built. A utility decides whose electricity bill goes up. A planning office decides who is consulted and who is not. If we get this wrong, we create a two-tier city. One part of the city hosts the infrastructure and carries the cost. Higher power prices, pressure on water, land taken out of other use. Another part of the city, often in another country entirely, receives the benefit. That is not a sustainable city. That is an extractive one. And there is a larger version of the same problem. The minerals that make all of this possible are mined in one set of countries and processed in a very small number of others. The country that supplies the raw materials usually capture the smallest share of the value. Its young people are trained to dig, they are not trained to refine, and they are not trained to design. That is why Goal 17, which is partnerships, is not a polite term at the end of the list. It is the mechanism. Without it, the digital transition simply repeats the resource pattern of the last 2 centuries using new metals. So let me close with 3 practical suggestions. First, treat computing as a physical infrastructure. Put it in the same city plan as water and power, not in separate economic development file. Second, attach a clear community benefit to every large facility. Grid upgrades, water recycling, local training places. Make it a condition, not a favor. Third, help build processing capacity and technical skills in the countries where the minerals are found. Not only mines, refineries, laboratories, and universities. At Quantum Alliance, this is our work, the industrial base beneath artificial intelligence, critical minerals, energy infrastructure, and supply chains. Each summer, we run a fellowship called Q Fellows, where young researchers and founders spend 10 weeks on these problems. This year, they have worked on graphite processing in Brazil, copper recycling, on financing new nuclear construction, on electricity grid, domestic sourcing of rare earth minerals. They are not waiting for permission, neither should we. The digital future is being poured in concrete and strung in copper right now in our cities. Let us make sure it is built for the people who live in them. Thank you.
All right, all right. Thank you very much, Mr. Kumar, for presenting such a compelling vision for sustainable development. Thank you. Now, I would like to welcome our next speaker in the name of Shun Fu. She's a high school student originally from Australia, and she has a strong interest in global health, human rights, and public policy. She advocates for a child-centered healthcare system that balances children's evolving autonomy, parental guidance, and equitable access to quality medical care. Ladies and gentlemen, please let's welcome Ms. Fu. I give you the floor.
Distinguished delegates, colleagues, and friends. As an EMT, I have learned that fairness is not treating everyone the same. It is ensuring each person receives the care, dignity, and respect they deserve. In an emergency, we do not ask who someone is before helping. We rely on protocols, evidence, and trust to make life-affecting decisions. My work in fashion taught me something similar. Creating opportunities for young creatives in an industry balancing creativity, representation, and standards, I have seen that trust depends on transparent, consistent rules. Although emergency medicine, fashion, and sports seem unrelated, they ask the same question. How do we build inclusive and fair systems? We must answer this for sport. Before a competition, athletes step toward the same starting line. That line represents one of sport's most important promises: clear rules, fair opportunity, and respect for every athlete's effort. Yet many athletes question whether they truly stand at the same starting line. Some worry that eligibility rules may undermine competitive fairness. Others fear exclusion, humiliation, or public attack because of their identity, physical characteristics, or medical history. The central issue is, how can sport become more inclusive while also protecting fairness, safety, and trust in competition? We need not choose between inclusion and fairness. We must protect every athlete's dignity while preserving competitive integrity. This debate often focuses on transgender athletes, but it affects many groups. Women athletes want confidence that competitive categories remain fair and safe. Transgender athletes deserve to participate without discrimination or harassment. Intersex athletes have faced intrusive testing and decisions affecting their health, privacy, and careers. Young athletes require protection for their development and mental well-being. Athletes from countries with weaker legal protections may face unfair treatment without meaningful access to appeal. Recognizing one group's experience should not mean dismissing another's legitimate concerns. What we need is not louder political debate, but clearer and more responsible rules. Different forms of sport serve different purposes. In schools, communities, and recreational settings, sport is often about health, friendship, confidence, and belonging. We should reduce unnecessary barriers and ensure that children can experience the benefits of participation. Elite competition, however, raises additional concerns. Medals, scholarships, national team selection, and professional careers may depend on extremely small differences in performance. Fairness directly affects opportunity and livelihood. We therefore cannot apply the same standards to every setting or sport. Weightlifting, swimming, rugby, shooting, and equestrian sport depend on different combinations of strength, speed, endurance, precision, coordination, and safety. Eligibility rules should reflect the actual demands of each discipline and distinguish among school, youth, national, and elite international competition. These rules must be grounded in reliable evidence. Where scientific research is strong, it should guide decisions. Where research remains uncertain, organizations must acknowledge that uncertainty rather than present assumptions as facts. Policies should not be driven by political pressure, stereotypes, isolated cases, or public anger. Scientists, doctors, ethicists, legal experts, human rights specialists, and athletes themselves should participate in developing them. Rules must also be transparent. Athletes have a right to know what standards apply, what evidence supports them, who made the decision, and where they can appeal. Independent review systems should ensure that disputes are handled promptly, fairly, and without conflicts of interest. We must also protect athletes' privacy and dignity. No athlete should be forced to publicly explain their body, sex characteristics, gender identity, or medical history. Disagreements over policy must never justify online abuse, threats, humiliation, or personal attack. Young athletes require special protection. Children and adolescents should not become tools in adult political debates. Policies affecting them must prioritize their best interests, health, education, privacy, and psychological well-being. This issue is also connected to sustainable development. Strong and sustainable societies require institutions people can trust. When athletes trust the rules and believe their dignity will be protected, they are more willing to participate. When the public trusts competition, sports can unite communities and inspire future generations. We must also address wider inequalities. Millions of children lack safe facilities, qualified coaches, equipment, healthcare, transportation, and financial support. True fairness is not only about who may enter a competition, it is also about who has the opportunity to begin training and develop their potential. Today, I call on governments and sporting institutions to take 4 actions. First, create eligibility rules specific to each sport, age group, and level of competition. Second, involve athletes, scientists, medical professionals, ethicists, and human rights experts. Third, guarantee transparent decisions, privacy, mental health support, and independent appeal. Fourth, invest in youth sport, women's sport, disability access, and underserved communities. Inclusion and fairness are not competing goals. Inclusion without confidence and fairness weakens trust. Fairness without dignity and non-discrimination harms the people sport is meant to serve. Let us build a sporting environment where every athlete is respected, every rule can withstand scientific and ethical scrutiny, and every achievement is truly meaningful. Despite our differences, we must still be able to stand together at the same starting line. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fu Shun, for offering a thoughtful and balanced vision of how sport can protect inclusion, but also fairness, dignity, and trust for every athlete. Thank you very much. Next, I would like to welcome Mr. Daniel Ye. He's a youth from Toronto, Canada. He's passionate about human rights and the role of technology in building a more peaceful world. Outside the classroom, Daniel enjoys playing and composing music for the piano, playing hockey with friends, and also snowboarding during the winter. He's also interested in game design. So please, Daniel Ye, I give you the floor.
Distinguished guests, respected UN representatives, fellow youth leaders, and friends from around the world. It is an honor to speak with you today on an issue deeply connected to peace, culture, technology, and the future of my generation. Last year, I joined an international online youth forum where a heated argument broke out. An activist and student from Kenya shared how floods had devastated her community. One reply simply said, just plant more trees and control your population, and the problem is solved. The Kenyan activist, of course, responded with frustration, explaining how such comments ignore colonial legacies, debt burdens, and her people's deep cultural connection to their land and rivers. What began as a climate conversation quickly became accusation, misunderstanding, and silence. That moment stayed with me because it revealed a painful truth. In the digital age, cultural misunderstanding can travel faster than compassion. This issue is also personal to my own work. I have conducted independent research on cultural capital and how it affects students from different backgrounds, as well as the education system as a whole. I am also currently designing a video game that explores what it feels like to have different cultural capital from others in a school setting, and how technology can help us understand one another and connect better. Through this work, I have come to believe that culture is not only something we inherit, it is something we must learn to recognize, respect, and bridge. Cross-cultural capital, the ability to understand, respect, listen to, and cooperate across cultures, has always been essential for peace building. It can transform misunderstanding into trust and conflict into collaboration. But today, many of our interactions, especially among young people, happen online. Cultural encounters increasingly begin and end on screens. This reality therefore demands a new concept: digital cross-cultural capital. Digital cross-cultural capital is the knowledge, skills, attitudes, ethical awareness, and digital practices that allow young people to understand, respect, listen to, and cooperate with people from diverse cultural backgrounds in digital environments. Its purpose is to reduce prejudice, address misinformation, and build trust where distrust has grown. This issue is urgent, very urgent. We are the first generation of digital natives. We do not simply use technology. We live inside it like a whole nother world. It shapes how we learn, speak, see others, and understand the world. We often meet other cultures first through TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and global forums before meeting them face to face. These spaces can connect humanity, but they can also magnify stereotypes, deepen echo chambers, and spread hate. My generation needs more than technical skills. We need moral, cultural, and human skills to use technology for peace. Polarization is rising. Digital hate speech, algorithmic echo chambers, and misinformation are turning cultural differences into weapons. Online arguments can become real-world conflict, shaping how societies discuss refugees, migration, climate justice, religion, race, and identity. Without real action, today's digital spaces will either become bridges that bring us closer together or walls that divide us further. To address this, I propose the Digital Cross-Cultural Capital for Peace framework, built on 4 pillars: understanding, respect, listening, and cooperation. Understanding means learning about our own cultures and others beyond surface-level content. Respect means rejecting cultural superiority and protecting the dignity of every background. Listening means crafting and creating safe digital spaces where marginalized voices are truly heard. Cooperation means turning understanding into joint action on shared challenges such as climate justice, refugee protection, and human rights. This framework builds upon digital capital, digital intercultural competence, and the United Nations educational, scientific, and cultural organizations' work on intercultural dialogue, all while offering a youth-centered approach for digital society. We already see possibilities through online youth forums, digital storytelling, AI translation tools, and youth-led technology projects. But possibility is simply not enough. We need actual commitment. Governments and schools should integrate digital cross-cultural capital into global citizenship education, media literacy, and empathy training. Technology companies must improve algorithms, strengthen moderation against hate, and create features that encourage positive cross-cultural interaction. International organizations, especially the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, and the United Nations themselves, should expand youth peace programs and create more platforms for meaningful dialogue. Young people must also lead by starting conversations, holding leaders accountable, and modeling respectful engagement online. Fellow youth and global leaders, we stand at a turning point. The digital world is no longer separate from the real world, not like before. It is becoming one of the main places where peace is either built or broken. Let us choose connection instead of conflict, learning instead of judgment, and dignity instead of division. Digital cross-cultural capital was never just an idea. It is a responsibility, a skill for peace, a tool for justice, and a bridge for our shared future. Now is the time for action. Together, we can turn the digital world into a bridge for peace. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Daniel. Thank you for sharing your thoughtful insights on, especially on the relationship between humanity and technology. All right, let's move on. It's my honor to have Dr. Sandy Sears as the next speaker. So Dr. Sandy Sears is an educator, researcher, and respected advocate for inclusive education. As an adjunct faculty member at the University of Connecticut, she advances research on positive behavioral intervention and supports PBIS, equitable discipline, and improved outcomes for students with disabilities. A graduate of Cornell University with advanced degrees from UConn, Dr. Sears also mentors neurodiverse adults and serves as Cornell alumni admissions interviewer. She brings to the HLPF a powerful combination of academic expertise, practical experience, and deep commitment to building inclusive but supportive and resilient learning communities. Ladies and gentlemen, please let's welcome Dr. Sandy Sears.
Thank you. Honorable Chair, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to address the 2026 High-Level Political Forum on behalf of the Beijing Changier Education Foundation. This year's theme calls for transformative, equitable, innovative, and coordinated actions to achieve the 2030 Agenda. These principles are especially relevant to SDG 11, which seeks to make cities and human settlements inclusive, safe, resilient, and sustainable. When we think about sustainable communities, we often think of clean water, transportation systems, housing, and resilient infrastructure. These are essential. But communities are strengthened not only by the infrastructure we build, they are also strengthened by the human systems that enable people to learn, participate, resolve conflict peacefully, and support one another. Safe and resilient communities depend upon both physical infrastructure and social infrastructure. One evidence-based framework that contributes to this social infrastructure is positive behavioral interventions and supports, PBIS. PBIS is a prevention-oriented, multi-tiered framework that helps organizations create positive, predictable, and inclusive environments. Rather than waiting for problems to occur and responding with punishment, it focuses on teaching positive behaviors, reinforcing success, using data to guide decisions, and providing increasing levels of support according to individual needs. The framework consists of 3 integrated tiers. Tier 1 provides universal supports that establish shared expectations and foster positive environments for everyone. It establishes clear behavioral expectations, teaches appropriate behaviors, and reinforces positive behavior consistently across all settings. It focuses on prevention by creating a safe, predictable, and supportive learning environment through explicit instruction, positive recognition, consistent consequences, and the use of data to guide decision-making. Tier 2 offers targeted interventions for individuals who need additional assistance. Tier 3 delivers individualized intensive supports based on each person's unique strengths, needs, and circumstances. This continuum enables organizations to promote inclusion while responding effectively to complex behavioral challenges. Although this preventive evidence-based framework was first developed for schools, it is expanded into healthcare, mental health, juvenile justice, and community settings because its core principle is universal. When environments are intentionally designed to support people proactively, everyone benefits. This has important implications for SDG 11. Inclusive and resilient communities are not built solely through physical infrastructure. They also depend on social infrastructure, systems that promote dignity, belonging, safety, participation, and trust. A preventative, evidence-based approach to fostering positive behavior strengthens that social infrastructure by replacing reactive responses with prevention, collaboration, and individual support. The evidence continues to grow. A 2026 systematic review by Sears, Hsu, and Simonson examined 10 studies evaluating school-wide implementation for students with disabilities. Across these studies, the authors found a consistent association between high-fidelity implementation and lower rates of exclusionary discipline, including suspensions and other disciplinary removals. Rather than excluding students whose behavioral needs are greatest, schools that implemented this framework created environments where expectations were explicitly taught, positive behavior was reinforced, and additional supports were provided before crises occurred. The review concluded that this systems-level approach is a promising strategy for creating more inclusive educational communities while identifying opportunities for continuing research. The same principles extend beyond schools. In 2026, Ronan and colleagues demonstrated that individualized implementation of this framework in an inpatient psychiatric hospital reduced restraint events by 76%. This remarkable outcome illustrates that proactive, person-centered behavioral supports can reduce the need for restrictive interventions while improving safety, dignity, and quality of care for both individuals and staff. Together, these findings demonstrate that this is not merely an educational initiative, it is a scalable framework for strengthening inclusive systems across education, healthcare, and community services. As we approach 2030, the challenge is not only to build sustainable cities, it is to build communities where every person feels safe, valued, and empowered to contribute. Investing in positive, inclusive human systems is as important as investing in physical infrastructure. Together, these investments create the resilient communities envisioned by SDGs 11. We encourage member states, civil society organizations, researchers, and international partners to continue sharing evidence-based practices that strengthen both the physical and social foundations of sustainable development. Through collaboration, innovation, and a commitment to human dignity, we can build communities that are not only sustainable, but places where every person can flourish. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sears, for demonstrating how evidence-based PBIS, which is actually the positive behavioral intervention and supports that can strengthen the social infrastructure needed to build a more inclusive, but also safe and resilient communities. So thank you very much. And let's move on to our next speakers, Lucy Wei, a 17-year-old student from the United States. Lucy is fascinated by contemporary cultural discussions and enjoys analyzing subjects from diverse perspectives. Her work delves into cross-cultural art, traditions and also the ongoing efforts to preserve native cultural heritage. So please welcome Lucy Wei, and floor is yours.
Distinguished delegates, esteemed guests, and fellow young people, it is an honor to speak with you today about an issue that affects not only how we understand the world, but also how we learn to understand one another. My opinion on the Israel-Palestine conflict. Trump's latest post shocks the world. What traveling in Brazil looks like. Expectations versus reality in suburban China. What is going on in Ukraine? These short, punchy headlines flood teenagers' social media feeds every day, including mine. And at first, they may seem harmless, informative, or even insightful. It was only after I encountered blatantly false content about my own home country, where I have lived for 13 years, that I recognized the danger behind these posts. Today, we no longer need to ask whether social media shapes how we perceive foreign nations. That is undeniable. The more urgent questions are, do we, as young global citizens, possess the media literacy to distinguish truth from falsehood? Are we conscious of the content we consume? Do we question why certain perspectives are repeatedly amplified while others are ignored? And most importantly, do we understand who controls the global narrative? A century ago, ordinary citizens seeking information about foreign events relied largely on printed newspapers, which were slow, filtered, and limited. Today, I can open TikTok or another platform, search for any international event, and instantly access first-hand perspectives from ordinary creators, some of whom who have actually lived through the event. And in the comment section, I can find people just like me who are learning and exchanging views. This immediate, low-barrier exchange of voices is one of social media's greatest benefits for global youth. Yet, it also creates a serious problem. Young viewers often lack reliable ways to distinguish verified information from biased or misleading claims, especially when they have no personal familiarity with the country or culture being discussed. Distortion rarely appears as obvious fake news. More often, harmful narratives spread through ordinary-looking content that quietly reshapes our understanding. When young people have never visited a country, spoken with local residents, or developed personal knowledge of its culture, a singular one-sided video can define their entire impression of that nation and its people. For example, a teenager may see footage of unsanitary street conditions in one low-income neighborhood abroad. The clip may show a real scene, but it does not fully represent the diversity and complexity of the country. Viewers may generalize this isolated image and form a fixed stereotype of the entire society, and without personal experience to challenge it. That narrow narrative may shape their long-term worldview. Social media algorithms worsen this problem by promoting eye-catching, exaggerated, and misleading content. Platforms do not primarily reward balanced and nuanced reporting. Their business models depend on engagement, which often favors sensational, divisive, and oversimplified posts. Algorithms repeatedly push polarizing clips while suppressing complex stories that require patience and context. Gradually, users encounter viewpoints that reinforce their existing bias, with little exposure to contrasting perspectives. Without counterbalancing narratives, we become less able to recognize incomplete or manipulative framing. These digitally constructed perceptions have real consequences for international relations. Today's youth are tomorrow's voters, policymakers, diplomats, and cross-cultural leaders. If our worldview is built on fragmented and biased social media clips, distrust between society will deepen across generations. Oversimplified national stereotypes can also weaken public support for humanitarian cooperation, international partnerships, and peaceful conflict resolution. Small, Uncorrected misunderstandings online can accumulate into lasting cultural divisions and create unnecessary barriers to global progress. This digital imbalance cannot be eliminated entirely, but its harm can be reduced through systematic media and information literacy education. Media literacy should no longer be treated as an optional activity available to only privileged students. It must become a core component of education worldwide. Schools should teach students how to verify sources, recognize algorithmic patterns, identify footage taken out of context, compare multiple accounts, and actively seek the voice of underrepresented communities. Cross-border cooperation is also essential. Governments, United Nations youth programs, media institutions, educators, and social media companies must work together. Platforms, in particular, should take greater responsibility for limiting misleading, decontextualized, and stereotypical content. They should stop amplifying one-sided clips solely for views and engagement, and give greater visibility to authentic, balanced stories that reflect the complexity of countries and global events. The United Nations could develop free, multilingual media literacy toolkits for schools in both developed and developing regions. Social media platforms could also introduce educational prompts, encouraging young users to examine sources and context before drawing broad conclusions. Social media has broken down historical barriers that once limited young people's understanding of distant nations. It offers an extraordinary opportunity for cross-cultural connection. But opportunity without critical awareness can create division rather than unity. If we seek meaningful progress toward peaceful global coexistence, we must invest in responsible digital citizenship for all young people. Let us move beyond passive scrolling and unexamined assumptions. Let us question incomplete narratives, seek balanced prompts, and recognize that every society is way more complex than one viral clip. Only when young people gain the tools to judge online information thoughtfully can we build a fairer and more empathetic global community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lucy, for highlighting the urgent need to equip young people with media literacy required to question digital narratives, to challenge stereotypes, but also to engage responsibly as global citizens. And thank you to all our speakers, to all our participants and global audience for being part of today's event. Your voices, your stories, your ideas and thoughts are the seeds of transformations. And let us make what we've heard and turn it into actions. And let us hold ourselves accountable for equality, for sustainability, but also for a shared future where no one is left behind. So as the next item on our agenda, we would like to move on to the Q&A session. And for the Q&A session, we already have some lineups, some questions. So I might start with Casey Jiang. So Casey Jiang, the question for you is, what practical role can young people play in preserving living heritage without commercializing, simplifying, or misrepresenting it?
Okay, thank you for your question. I think young people can play three practical roles: listeners, collaborators, and responsible storytellers. First, we should start by learning from community members instead of deciding for them what their culture means or how it should be shared and passed on. Second, we can also support community-led education, documentation, and digital projects while giving credit, clear credit, and sharing the benefits with community members. And third, before presenting any tradition, we should always have the awareness and ask, is it accurate? Is it respectful? And does it truly support the people who keep the culture alive? Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for your answer. And I believe that the simultaneous interpretation, they did the work. We have a question for Ujwal Kumar. So, Mr. Kumar, what responsibilities do technology companies have towards the communities and countries that supply the minerals supporting AI infrastructure? 还有一个问题，对于库马尔先生，对于支撑人工智能的基础设施所需要的矿产的供应社区的国家和国家科技公司应该承担哪些责任呢？So, Mr. Kumar, the question is yours.
Thank you for the question. It is the right one to ask. Let me start with something uncomfortable. Almost every large technology company can tell you who makes their chips, but very few can tell you which mine the metal comes from, which they use. So the first responsibility is simply to look, trace the material back to the ground, and then see publicly what you found. The second one is about how you buy. A long-term purchase agreement is worth far more to a producing country than a donation is. And it is worth more again if it comes with processing built locally and engineers trained locally. Because the goal here is not charity. The goal here is that the country moves up the value chain instead of staying a query. The third one, people forget. The town that hosts the data center is a supplier too. It supplies land, it supplies power, it supplies water. It deserves the same transparency and the same share of benefit. And let me be honest about the limits of this. Very few companies will do all of that voluntarily, at scale, while a competitor does not have to. So governments have to make it a condition for doing business. That is what is goal 17 is really for. And hopefully, I'll be like my ideas, my views I'm expressing here is in my personal capacity, but I'd love for the governments and the big techs to pick it up. Thank you so much.
Hello? Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Oh, all right, all right. 乌马尔先生对此问题呢，他提出了3点。他首先呢，每一家科技公司的话呢，它会用原材料啊，他们会大大的去用原材料，但是呢，没有一家或者少有哪家公司，它会去系统的去研究我所用的原材料来自于哪里，具体有什么样的一些特征，他觉得这是一个很大的问题。第二点呢，他提出了怎么买的问题，怎么买？就是说为什么是一个很大的问题呢？因为库马尔先生他主张国内采购，一定要去当地采购，当地买一些所需要的资料或者矿产资源。但是呢，还有很重要一点呢，要加工，要深加工，要在当地深加工。提升当地的附加值。第三点的话呢，是说那些科技公司呢，东道国在国外，一定是把这些国家当做一供应商。为什么供应商呢？因为这些国家给他们提供土地，但是也给他们提供水和电。所以这些国家的话呢，科技公司非常的得尊重这些国家。所以说，他感觉因为什么呢？科技公司为什么要去这些国家？是因为 因为那边它有很多的利益嘛，天上没有免费的，这个我也没有免费的午餐嘛，但是呢，是对这些国家的政府是一个很好的机会，所以他们可以以政策为武器去跟这些科技公司去谈判，才能去衡量科技公司和这些国家之间的利益。Thank you very much, Mr. Kumar. The next question is for Ms. Fu Shun. Beyond eligibility rules, what is the most urgent action needed to make sport generally accessible to underserved young people? So, Ms. Fu Shun.
Thank you for the question. Okay, so beyond eligibility rules, I think the most urgent action is investing in equal access to sport. Because for millions of young people, especially those in underserved communities, the biggest barrier is not who is allowed to compete, it is whether they have the opportunity to participate at all. Because many children lack safe facilities, qualified coaches, affordable equipment, transportation, or even enough free time because of economic pressures. And girls, children with disabilities, refugees, and young people living in poverty often face additional barriers. Governments, schools, and sporting organizations should work together to invest in community sport programs, safe facilities, inclusive coaching, and financial support so that every child has the chance to develop their potential. And if we truly believe that sport is a tool for health, education, and social inclusion, then fairness must begin long before the competition starts. And it begins by ensuring that every young person has the opportunity to step onto the field in the first place.
Thank you very much for your comprehensive answer. And next, I would like to move to Dr. Sandy Says. So there's also a question for you. What are the most common reasons PBIS implementation fails? And how can organization avoid them? 所以下一个问题呢是，针对于3D 女士，主要是想问正向行为干预与支持，它的实施失败最常见的原因是什么？然后很多的组织或是一些机构该如何去避免这些失败？So, Dr. Sayers, the floor is yours.
Thank you. One reason that PBIS can fail is treating it as a program instead of a framework. A program is going to have a beginning and an ending. A framework is continuous. And in addition, organizations implementing PBIS may focus only on reward systems while neglecting the other aspects of PBIS. So the solution is to implement all core PBIS features together rather than isolated strategies. Another feature that can lead to failure is the existence of weak data systems. PBIS relies on reliable behavioral data so that teams can identify problems and evaluate interventions. So it's important to establish consistent procedures for collecting, reviewing, and acting on discipline and behavior data. Another sign of failure is poor fidelity of implementation. Schools may say they're using PBIS, but omit essential components like teaching expectations or acknowledging positive behavior, both of which are crucial for success. Organizations should use implementation fidelity tools and regular observations to identify gaps before judging effectiveness. And then the final one that I'll share is one that applies to almost everything we've talked about, which is a lack of leadership commitment. PBIS may be perceived as a temporary initiative rather than a long-term system. So we have to ensure leaders actively participate, communicate expectations, allocate resources, and regularly review implementation data. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Says. 所以，Sass 女士呢，她提出很多，比如说挑战。首先的话呢，她是说，PBIS 也就是说是正向行为干预与支持，它的短板是什么呢？一是很多人把它看成一个节目或者一个项目，那它有什么特别呢？是有一个开始和结束，而没有把它当成像一个框架。框架是什么呢？是持续的一个过程。还有一点的一个短板呢，是很多人把它理解为一个，比如说，给奖励的一个体系哈。所以他觉得这也是一个问题，因为如果只把它把它看成一个，比如说能够评奖、能够给奖励的这么一个体系呢，那肯定是要忽略很多点。所以说，另一方面的话，PBIS 呢，它还是有一个非常薄弱的一个数据库或者这么一个数据这么一个机制，所以一定要设立一个非常好的、非常牢靠的，比如说能够去撑起整体的，比如说人性在人的行为的一个数据，所以一定要把数据搭建起来。所以在另一方面说，在落实方面也是有很多的短板，因为什么呢？因为他觉得一定要多观察他觉得观察和跟踪管理对于正向行为干预与支持呢是非常非常的重要最后一点呢，他说领导力他说没有，他说一定要有一个领导力必须得突出他说领导力的缺失的话呢，也亮出正向行为干预与支持的短板，所以一定要去培养，一定要去赋能这个领导力，才能去发挥正向行为干预与支持的真正的作用。Thank you very much, Dr. Says. And we also have a question for Daniel. So, Daniel, how can young people tell whether an online cultural narrative is authentic or incomplete or even misleading?
Okay. Thank you for the question. So young people, they can tell whether online cultural narratives are authentic by mainly practicing the aspects of digital cross-cultural capital. So firstly, they need to ask who is telling the story and then decide whether the voices of people affected are actually being represented meaningfully. And they should always compare and contrast a number of credible sources, especially those from different cultural perspectives, rather than basing it all on a single post they see online. And they should also realize and recognize that social media often shows only fragments of complex issues or just the tip of the iceberg, so they should always listen before making any judgments. And finally, they can reflect on their own biases and be open to the idea of changing their view and opinions if they are presented with new information and evidence. An authentic narrative should often include context, different perspectives, and experiences that feel real, while misleading narratives often rely on stereotypes or different sorts of misinformation. So they need to combine their critical thinking skills with empathy and use digital spaces not only to identify said misinformation, but also to build meaningful cross-cultural understanding among themselves.
All right. Thank you very much, Daniel. And I believe with that last answer, we are done with the round of questions and we close the Q&A sessions. So thank you very much. On behalf of the organizing teams, I would like to express our deepest gratitude for your dedication, for your boundless energy and commitment. Until we meet again, let us continue to stay engaged. Let us continue to stay inspired and, of course, united. Thank you once again. We're looking forward to seeing you next year. Thank you very much and good night, good day, good evening. Thank you.